Good evening and welcome to Forsythe Church of Christ live stream. If you've been tuning in, you may recognize that tonight looks a little bit different, maybe a different face on the screen, and I'll get to that in just a minute. But before I do want to thank John Dobbs because he is here. He's off camera over there helping us run the technology side of things tonight. So if anything messes up, you know who to talk to. I want to encourage you to keep tuning in to what we're putting online as a church. We want to encourage and bless as many people as possible. So if you feel the need or you would like to, just hit like, share this video, share the other videos. They're all archived on our Facebook page. So we're glad you're tuning in. We are meeting on Sundays now. This will be, I think, the fourth week that we'll be meeting. We're trying to get back into the swing of things, which is really just kind of a constant challenge, but we're doing the best we can. So if you have any questions about the guidelines or protocol that we're laying out there as a church, just go to facoc.org. You can check all that out. There's also access to many other things on facoc.org, our webpage. You can give online. You can look at archived sermons. You can sign up for our email correspondence. So there's a lot of ways that you can stay caught up and tuned in to what we're doing as a church. But tonight I have with me, this is my dad, Gary Kirkendall. Gary, our dad, I'll call you Gary for professional reasons. He's the minister at the Hilton Head Church of Christ in Hilton Head, South Carolina, and you've been there for a year?
10 months.
10 months, and you're also the executive director for Living Hope for Honduras, and you've done that in some capacity for really as long as I can remember. It's been official, I guess, for, 12 years?
Yep.
Something like that.
14,
Been involved for 30 years now, pretty much. And it's Living Hope for Honduras is a mission organization that focuses in a certain area in Honduras. And 3 years ago, when my family moved here, that's something that we wanted to bring with us. And so our church graciously got involved in that. We've made trips. We've picked up support for a preacher and helped him work in the 2 villages that he ministers to. So it's been a great thing. So I'm glad you're here personally, and I'm glad you're here to give a missions update because we do have a lot of people in our church who care about what's going on in Honduras with Kevin, or we just say Kevin, because Kevin is hard to say in rhythm. And so I just want to ask a few questions, and feel free to answer them as thoroughly as you would like. Okay. And so the first question has to do with really kind of just the past few months. Living Hope predominantly operates in rural Honduras in a district called Olancho. And Olancho, the economic lifeblood of Olancho is agriculture. And when we go out there, we land our airplane, we drive for 3.5, 4 hours, and the scenery changes, the culture changes, the colonization changes, and it's a lot different than being packed in the large cities there. So I guess really, I don't have a Honduran news channel. Right. So don't really know what's going on, unless I have to search for it or because I have contacts there, and you definitely have contacts there. So can you kind of give us an update or a rundown over the past few months of what's going on, particularly in the areas that Living Hope operates and that Forsythe is involved in Toro Muerto and Pecora?
Right. Well, the folks in Honduras started dealing with the COVID crisis about the same time we did here in the United States. And if you can remember back to the middle of March when all this started, no one really knew what to do at first and exactly how things would be. And the first thing that happened, of course, they began to restrict international travel, folks moving in and out of Honduras. Honduras has a lot of economic ties to the Far East, and so there are a lot of folks from China and other places where the virus initiated, and so they were very, very concerned about that. But then when things began to take hold, and especially when the case count in the United States began to go up and ramp up in the beginning, when everyone was worried about ventilators and what was happening in New York City and places like that. Honduras locked the country down, and by that I mean they closed all of their borders, and they placed very, very strict checkpoints between cities, even between small towns. And for folks who have gone, you go through these checkpoints from Tegucigalpa out there, but usually there's no one there. If they're there, they just wave at you. But the National Police came in and put in these checkpoints and made it impossible for people to travel from one community to the next, even if that next community is only 10 miles down the road. And then what they did that was different than here in the United States was they closed everything down and only allowed people to be able to buy necessities like groceries, medicines, and things one day every week. And they used the last number on their ID card to determine if you were 1 and 2, the last number you go on Monday, 3 and 4 Tuesday, so on and so forth. And then when things became even more severe, they stretched that out to every other week. And the timing couldn't have been worse in terms of the annual cycle of life in Honduras. A terrific drought hit. The dry season is that time, but it was especially bad this year. Businesses closed down, farms failed, prices collapsed. All these things happened at the same time with these folks that were stuck there, and of course life there is different. There was no stimulus checks going out to folks in Honduras, and folks had to fend for themselves, and so we found ourselves scrambling to do everything that we could to help the folks down there in any way we can. But it's been very, very difficult, and it's been very, very, very slow to relax. It's still that way now in Honduras. And for example, the girls at the children's home, they have not been away from the farm property since the middle of March. So it's been a very difficult thing.
So it's taken a toll with I guess involvement with different people and being able to get the necessities. What about the agriculture economy? Like, what's
it's a weird thing because on one hand, people aren't able to go work the fields, but at the same time, there's no price support, and that's started to change. But so much of Honduras's agriculture goods are exported out, and of course, all that just froze for a while. But now that's beginning to relax. But when you look at places, especially like in Toro Muerto and Pacura, where Kevin is. That's all there is out there. There's nothing else out there. And those people are kind of cut off. And so the difficulties that they've had in that area have been very bad. And also for anyone who goes down there, we leave our compound. We have to go over a little mountain to get out there. And it's always drier on that side of the mountain anyway. And this year they were really, really hit very, very hard with a very severe drought. And so So what we found out real quick, we'll talk about this, I guess, a little bit later, though, is that there were literally hundreds of families who were members of one of the 17 churches that we've planted down there who had no food and had no way to get food. And when you add medical issues on top of that and other things, you can see it's very, very difficult.
Yeah, the trickle effect, man, I couldn't imagine, especially in a poverty-stricken place like that relies so heavily on one industry. And when that shuts down, everything goes. So, it's good that we have the blessing and the opportunity as individuals, as churches, as a missional organization to take those trips, and to get to see what life is like there. And of course, I'm sure it's different now than it ever has been when a group's been down there. But in a typical year, the summers are just packed full of groups and North American people down there that are just wanting to pour into, the locals and the churches. And, they would go to Gualaco, the town in Olancho, when we stay there. That's kind of the HQ. As a matter of fact, today I was supposed to be, and you were supposed to be leaving, and this would have been my second trip of this summer. But now it's the second one that's being canceled. So Living Hope as an organization has obviously had to adapt and do things that may be new to everybody involved. So what are some ways that you've had to adapt in order to be able to be a blessing to the people of Honduras?
Well, in 2019, we had 17 mission groups throughout the year that go down. This year, 2020, we've had one. Actually, you could argue we've had none because we went down the last week of December and stayed the first week in January. So since that time, there have been 6 or 7 trips that have been canceled. And then nothing in July. We had groups also in August, and those groups included engineering students from Abilene Christian University that were helping us put in our septic system and also handle the water drainage from the new construction to make sure that we didn't have any erosion problems, and that's been taken off the table. We had educators going down to help implement curriculum in schools, and all of these things. And of course, and the only good thing is that the cellular system in Honduras has finally gotten to the point from Linares, there's cellular data now. So that means that I can talk to Elvin and Pablo and Victor and Naman and their whole crew as often as I need to now. But everything comes secondhand, and it's very, very difficult. And so, we're having to deal with this where we can. We meet with them via Zoom or messenger video 2 or 3 times a month to keep up with what's going on. And we talked about this earlier, that the food thing was such a big deal. Mm-hmm. And for those of you who are involved with ministry know that we sent out an email blast, and we never depended upon email,
right?
To gain the resources necessary. We didn't know what was going to happen, and our goal was to be able to feed 100 to 150 families. And last night we had a meeting. It was a virtual mission trip. Folks who were going, we all got on a Zoom meeting. There were over 20 of us, and we were visiting with the girls at the children's home and all this. And we received a report that there are well over 500 families that have been given enough food to last 2 to 4 weeks because of how people responded to that. And getting back, especially to where Forsythe is involved, there has been a heavy concentration of people there who needed help, and our crew has done a very, very good job down there. They put together the packaging, and they handled all the logistics of that, and within 5 or 6 days, when the first call came out, we started delivering food and doing those kinds of things. And so, but the construction of the new children's home has just been suspended. One of the reasons is we don't want people from the outside coming in. Now, the good news is, and I meant to mention this earlier, we haven't had a single case of COVID-19 in any of the communities there. The shutdown that the Honduran government put in place has really protected Olancho. And so when the hospitals, the major hospitals in cities like Tegucigalpa, San Pedro Sula, Choluteca, and other places, they're on the verge of being overwhelmed. Mm-hmm. And it is a growing problem in the metropolitan areas, but where we are, we have been spared completely. And of all of Olancho, which is the largest area within Honduras that's a district, I think there have only been 4 to 6 confirmed cases. So we've been very, very blessed. But we've had to just redo everything. Mm-hmm. And that includes the way that we operate administrationally on our end, just the way we communicate, board members and committees and those kinds of things that work together. And just like churches and everybody else, you just have to figure it out as you go.
That's right.
There's no other option.
So I guess the good thing is in Honduras, the places like Gualaco and Pacora and Toro Muerto, they're small towns and they're spaced out, mm-hmm. As opposed to, say, in Tegucigalpa, where people almost literally live right on top of one another. And so, and the healthcare system is, there's a lot to be desired. But yes, I agree. Doing the food drive was a necessity for the people down mm-hmm. there. And the pictures, if you want to blow that up, John, can you go to the slide? You can see these pictures. All these 4 pictures have to do with that's Kevin or Cabine in those pictures there, and that's the food that's going to Toro Muerto and Pacora. And so those are the people that we know and that we care about as a church. Okay, so let's look at, when we look at those pictures, that that's something that we're involved in as a church, and during our commitment in our commitment to the missions and to support Cabine, we have not missed a beat. Our church has been able to graciously and generously to continue to support the missions that we have committed to, right. And I think that's a very noble thing. As we've maintained the support, we've had the pandemic going on. We've had the racial uprisings and the political stress that we've been under. And so, in spite of that, Forsythe has been able to maintain the support of the missions and ministries that we've committed to, like I said.
Right.
You're involved with other churches and other organizations. Have you seen that from from other places too, or have some people had to make some changes in their giving, and how has Living Hope reacted to that?
We have been very, very fortunate. All of our regular congregational support from churches, all the way from Colorado to South Carolina, have not missed a single beat. And we've stayed, of course, close communication with them as much as possible. And some of these churches do not do monthly gifts, but they do an annual thing, and those will be coming up. So we're talking to them about what's going to happen in that regard. The regular monthly donors who set up an account on the online giving deal for Living Hope, or who just have a check come through their financial institution, those have remained solid as well. The anxiety is, of course, as it is everybody, nobody knows what's going to happen in the next quarter or the next 6 months, and how that's going to affect the local, not the local economy, but the national economy here in the United States, and in turn how that will affect that. As always the case with nonprofits, you have a lot of support from people who are small business owners and those kinds of things, and there's a high level of anxiety with these folks. Whether it's a physician's office or somebody that owns a printing company or whatever it might be,
anything,
no one really knows. But what I have been encouraged by is that people that I have talked to basically have taken the attitude is, we're going to do this for as long as we can, and we're going to just have faith that we're going to get through this, that God's going to see us through this. And so in turn, we've taken that very same attitude as well as an organization. Of course, the big thing that has changed for us is that in March, April, May, and June, in those 4 months, we received more funding online than we did the entire previous year, and I was really happy that folks decided to take advantage of that and do that, because it makes things quicker and easier, and you have to wait for the mail to come and all that kind of stuff, and plus we have all the information that comes with that. It's really great, and it helps us to be able to react quicker. And the churches that I have talked to, and all of our churches are in the same boat. Nobody really knows what to do. They're doing the best we can. People want to be together, and they want to be bound together. And I know that congregational leaders, that this is what they focus on. But what I've been very proud of and encouraged by is that churches are not, at least the ones I'm involved with, have not lost sight of why they exist. They exist to spread the good news of Jesus throughout the world. They spread to fulfill the mission of Christ in this world, and they're not willing to set that aside in order just to say that we're doing church. Church isn't a service. Church is an activity, as far as I'm concerned, and so it's been very, very, very helpful in that regard. So
that's great. I want to say amen on our own live stream to that, because I agree. Church isn't really a building, or it's an activity. It's a way of life. And I'm actually going to talk about that after this last question. But you mentioned it. This is, I call it an unprecedented uncertainty. Okay, and what I mean by that is we've never experienced anything like this. Right. In this room between John and you and myself, we've probably got maybe close to 100 years of ministerial experience, and we have no idea what it looks like week to week, day to day. There's no training, there's no handbook, and on top of that, no one really knows how this is going to end and how it's all going to play out. So it's difficult. And that's just in my world. And so I think about, in your world, with Living Hope, it's not just a local group. I mean, it's worldwide in a literal sense. And so looking forward in this time of unprecedented uncertainty, what's next for Living Hope in terms of moving forward, and what are you guys trying to do, in the future?
Nothing has changed in terms of what we're hoping to accomplish. And the way that I've kind of viewed this whole deal is, I think when all this passes, we're going to look back at 6 months, 9 months, maybe 12 months of 2020, maybe even in 2021, as almost a timeout phase, where time, in terms of progress, time, everything's just on pause. But when you have people who are starving to death, and and it's funny how God takes care of these things. I give you two quick examples. One is we were approached by another organization who built a school in Kalika. Where is it?
Catacamas.
No. Where next to Las Delicias, in the little town with the pedestrian bridge. But anyway, Coluco. That's it. Yeah. Coluco, just a drive-through deal. But an organization built a school, and it's the School of Hope, is what they call it there. That's why that pedestrian bridge is across the highway, and it's a private, but there's no tuition school that helps teach English, and they have a lot of stuff. And they wanted our girls to come there because they knew it would be a better educational deal, and they like what we're doing. So we sent our girls there, and then the pandemic hit. Well, that's the only school those girls could have been in where they could continue their education via the internet. No public schools could do that, and those kinds of things just kind of unpeel and happen, and it's been that way with many things that have gone on. You look and you see that it is going to be possible. Doors continue to open. And so what we're doing is we're looking for our next trip. We're looking for our next window. And we've made a commitment that as soon as it's possible for us to travel, we're going to travel. And we're going. And last night, for example, on the virtual mission trip, I was so encouraged. Everyone who is on the staff at Abilene Christian University in their mission groups and their interns, they all attended and stayed the entire time, and were really, really concerned because they want to get back involved with this too. So in terms of what we're doing, we're going to finish the second girls' home. Actually, they renewed a little bit of construction this past week, but that's probably going to be put on pause as well because we still don't know what's going on. All of our students that are being sponsored in school, the money for the second half of their year that basically was not used and school shut down has been set off to the side and will be applied as moving forward. Our university students are all most of them able to continue online, and we're going to continue with that. And the churches now, most of our churches are meeting now. For a long time they couldn't, but because Olancho has done so well, they are meeting, but they can only meet one time a week. But that's a whole lot better than none.
Yeah.
So we're very about that. And then you look at a place, once again, let me go back to Pecora and Toromoto because that's so important to Forsythe. Those churches are meeting, and every family that needed assistance with food in those villages were taken care of. Every family. I was very, very happy about that. And we'll be finding out soon if we're going to need to go back with another shot of that or what. But I think what's going to fundamentally change in the short term for us is I think that we're going to have to focus on some immediate relief ministries rather than just long-term changing attitudes and those kinds of things. That's kind of been our deal in the past. But we're determined to only make decisions based on things we know, not things we don't know. So we're not going to speculate, or we're not going to act out of fear, but we're going to hold tight and do everything that we possibly can, but never lose track of that long-term mission and goals that we already have established as an organization out there.
I think that's great, and I think that's it's good to see the way that God works through His people here on earth that are able to keep things going, like Living Hope, and even like our local churches. Their commitment to the body of believers, both locally and internationally, has been amazing. And I think it's a great thing. So I want to say thank you for being here. I know this means a lot to a lot of people hearing what's going on. When this first hit, that was one of my first thoughts: is how's this going to affect the people in Honduras, their health care, their availability for tests, and just things like that. It's just you never know. So again, if you have any questions that you'd like to submit about Honduras, there's a couple ways you can do that. You can go in the comments below. We're going to read those. We'll answer those. We may redirect you, and if we do, it's going to be to livinghopeforhonduras.org, or go to Facebook, search for Living Hope for Honduras. But we want to keep people involved and informed about what's happening in Honduras. So again, thank you for being there.
Well, just let me say,
Yes.
before we jump out of it, I just want to say thank you to the Forsythe family. It means a lot to me, not only for you to support A Living Hope, but of course, Forsythe's very important to me in terms of my family, my son, his family as well. But I just really want to say thank you to the church leadership, to the members for embracing this ministry and doing such a wonderful job in helping Kevin in Toro Morto at Pecora.
Yeah. Well, thank you. He actually sent me a picture of when they were able to meet again for the first time. He sent me a picture of the church building that we built 3 years ago, 2.5 years ago. And it's a great thing. It has been kind of disappointing not to be able to make these trips, though.
Yes.
We'll be able to experience Independence Day for the first time in a while.
That's right. It's in a decade.
Yeah, that's right.
Probably 10 years. This is the first time we've been home for July 4th. So.
Well, what we're doing on Wednesday night is, for the past few weeks, we've been having Bible studies, and John and I have been putting our heads together and saying, okay, what can we do that's practical, that will encourage people, build people up, maybe make people feel good about things in times that are tough, or something like that. We're trying to get inspiration, and so here's what we decided to do moving forward, and this is like a cliffhanger or a teaser for next week. We're going to look at attitude. So when I was growing up, and actually the first time I met John that I remember, he was a director at a church camp that we went to, and one of my dad's good friends and John's good friends, a guy named Danny Dodd, used to come out first thing in the morning, and he would yell at the top of his lungs, "Attitude check," and everybody in camp would say, "I feel good. Oh, I feel so good." And so it was like just a way to say, hey, take a look in the mirror real quick and tell everybody how good you feel. And I think there are times in our lives where we need to do those things. Philippians chapter 2 verse 5 says, you must have the same attitude that Christ Jesus had. And attitude, by definition, is a way of thinking or a way of feeling about someone or something that is reflected in your behavior. Another definition is a position of the body implying an action or a state of mind. And so attitude is kind of what comes out of our bodies due to the way that we think or the way that we're influenced. And so and I think sometimes when we hear negative news or things are just difficult, it's easy for us to kind of get down in the dumps or get the blues, however you want to put it. James chapter 1 verse 23 says, if you listen to the word and don't obey, it's like glancing in a mirror and then walking away and forgetting what you look like. And so as people of God, sometimes it's easy for us to be conditioned by the world and our environment to where we may forget who we are and what our attitude is like. So that's what we're going to do for the next few weeks moving forward. So thank you again for tuning in. Hope you like, share, maybe comment if you'd like to.